something like XRP has been going absolutely nuclear over the last 2 weeks. I mean, just generally speaking, in the last few months, it is one of the best performing coins, right? We went from, let's just say, ranging from 35, 36 cents to 65 cents, right? Having a kind of mediocre performance for a very long time, right? From June 22nd to all the way to October in 2024. We're kind of just going sideways. Even the bull run in 2021 was fairly trash. Although, it does make sense because, ladies and gentlemen, we had the lawsuit. Plus, XRP cashed out into this institutional candle. But that's a story for another day. But overall, XRP was kind of just underwhelming, right? Especially considering, where it was all the way back here in 2016, 2014, 2015, right? You're talking about pretty much, let's just say 1 cent, and it went all the way to at $1.3 and 57 cents, right? So crazy, crazy gains could have been made when you bought XRP then. There was a lot of hype, there was a lot of everything around XRP. And then the lawsuit happened, and then things happened, and then it slowed down the progress, right? It really, really did slow down the progress. And yeah, man, it was looking kind of mediocre, kind of gray for a very long time. But then, Trump won and everything started to become more pro crypto, pro this, pro that. Lawsuits getting dropped, and we can see the effect it has had for something like XRP. If you're not familiar with XRP, ladies and gentlemen, it is practically the bank coin. Okay. There's no other way to put it. It is the bank coin. Okay. So, yeah, this coin is going to be very, very relevant over the next many, many years because it's very simple. The house never loses. Okay. I repeat, the house never loses. Now, let's talk about the analysis. Let's talk about the price action and where XRP is headed next. We can see that we did have this huge rally in November, right? We even had consistent pumps all the way until, let's just say, January time. We went to $3.40. We can see we kind of did top out around the all-time highs, right? We kind of did top out around the all-time highs. And then, of course, we did have a little bit of a pullback. It is normal. But what a lot of people are failing to realize is that we were actually consolidating on the last two relevant highs. Now, even though we did have a high of $3.52, you have to realize the candle close is actually around $2, right? It's actually around $2. And then we still have the wicks of this high over here, right? And we can see that it's actually been perfectly consolidating the last few months, just going sideways, just making sure that we are building a solid floor, right? We've practically been holding $2 the whole time. Sure, there's been times where things, have dipped a little bit more, but generally speaking, we have been holding $2. And, even on the channel, we covered it before that, boom, when we had this change of character, this change of momentum, we kind of knew XRP is not going to ever hit really low points again, right? We knew that it was very, very unlikely and that there was a low probability of it happening. Okay. And you can see, I mean, look at us, right? Look at us. We are expecting to, go higher and higher. It would not surprise me if there's just a little bit of a pullback right now, just because we did take out this. Actually, we technically didn't, but we are back at this January candle, right? We do have a double top. So if we did go a couple cents higher, it would not surprise me if we sell off, just say 10, 20 cents, just for a little bit, just for a pullback, right? But I do think we are going to be attempting to break the all-time highs. Right? I do believe that ultimately, even this week, we are looking to be breaking the all-time highs of $3.54. Now, what does this mean? Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think something very, very similar is going to happen, kind of the way it happened, a couple months ago, where we probably will see some type of pump, right? Then it would not surprise me if we just consolidate a little bit, not necessarily too long, before we make an attempt in another big rally. The reality is, ladies and gentlemen, right? We definitely have at least two more big pumps in us, okay? Because when we go and look at something like the other charts, like Bitcoin dominance, yes, Bitcoin dominance is dropping, but technically it still has a chance for a reversal because we need to go below 62.15% and close below that to really confirm that we are going to be having the altcoin season right now. Okay. But in the event where it kind of holds and starts to recover, right, things like XRP will be slowing down. But that's not a bad thing, because the reality is you want something like Bitcoin dominance to actually go even higher, because if it did go higher, ladies and gentlemen, when the time comes to officially have altcoin season and when it drops, ooh, that extra 10% goes a very, very long way. We overall know that XRP is objectively a fantastic coin. It just had issues with the lawsuit. And, in terms of big multipliers, I do believe there are better coins out there for very big multipliers. But, if your goal is, from this point, a 3x or something, 3 to 4x, then I think that's very, very realistic. We are at 200 billion market cap, 15 billion volume. Okay. So yeah, I mean, even getting a 4x from here would pretty much put us over $12 at roughly 800 billion market cap, which is crazy to think about. Guys, remember, this requires a lot of money to move. But at the same time, like I said, this is a bank coin. We can even see the volume in the last 24 hours, right? 1.6 billion on this exchange of Binance, Bybit, Coinbase. I mean, Upbit, damn, Upbit has pretty good, has the second biggest. That's pretty good. But yeah, overall, I do expect things, big things for XRP, right? I really, really do. I do think we could be definitely hitting that $12 price target this cycle, even if we took the Fibonacci tool, right? Even if we took the Fibonacci tool, ladies and gentlemen, right? Put it from the high to the bottoms, right? The 3.2 area is kind of like realistic, but slightly on the higher end. And we can see perfectly aligns at $12, right? An underwhelming push to the upside would be around $6. Something very realistic and fair, right? Fair would be around $8, but I do think we'd definitely be hitting between $8 to $12 as a realistic standpoint, right? At the end of the day, you have to remember that this, right, all of this sideways movement here and all of this sideways movement here, right, like this, does count as consolidation. Okay, it does count as consolidation. So when we do start officially expanding up and really exploding, where we go up multiple cents a day, like 10, 20, 30 cents a day consistently for a month, month and a half, then yes, I do think that we can definitely be hitting upwards of $12. But ultimately, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. Let me know if you want more XRP content. Usually when I make XRP content, it does have lower views, lower likes, and lower comments. But I really do want to tap into the community, as I do think there's a lot of potential there. And of course, I am more than satisfied covering the charts as often as you guys would like, as long as there's some support on the videos. But yeah, that is it, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.